All right. Welcome everyone to the live stream. Thank you guys for attending. We're going to let some folks trickle in. And I always want to do a quick audio check just to make sure everything is good on my side so we can hear the audio. If you guys are tuned in right now, definitely let me know your name, where you're coming from, and we'll love to chat more. So a couple of things as we get on. Always like to have more conversations with folks. So I'm going to post the live stream link here. If you guys want to come on and join me in the live stream, you can ask questions, we can engage. Feel free to use the link here and it'll pop right into the live stream. So that's one. Actually, let me keep that up. The second thing is I'm going to answer a couple of questions that I've been getting. The themes are typically similar about getting into informatics or getting into health tech. So I'll address some of that. I see a question already about some master's program. There's actually a few questions addressing that. So maybe we're going to get into that a little bit as well. And then the last piece, I wanted to actually talk a little bit about Open Clin Tech, which is a new entity I'm forming to help clinicians get into tech companies. I've shared it on LinkedIn, but I've never shared it on YouTube yet. So this is more so for my YouTube audience, but definitely want to get input from everyone in terms of what they would like to see when it comes to content. For those who are on the YouTube side, what I'm doing here is I'm basically creating content and putting it all out for free on YouTube, hopefully to teach you guys the skills and concepts that you could use to get into health tech companies. So actually, let's start with the live stream questions first before I jump into the ones I have on my end. Let's see. The first one here is from, let me say good evening. Good evening to you as well. Layla says, do you ever think about doing an MBA instead of a MSCS? That's a great question. I actually do. And I actually thought about doing both. Maybe I can share a couple of comments on that, but I was going to pull up the program I was actually interested in. So let me do that real quick. Here it is. I'm going to post it in the chat. So the short answer to that is yes. And I've thought about it for probably the last 5 years. I think one of the things, there's a couple schools of thought in no sequential order here. One school of thought is, are you more interested in building things, which a MSCS may be more of your interest, or are you more interested in doing more of the business conceptual kind of piece of it, if you will? I am personally a builder. I like to be deep in the weeds, building things. I'm less interested in engaging with investors, engaging with other business folks to talk strategy. That doesn't intrigue me as much. At the same time, because I have an interest in entrepreneurship and building businesses as well, I do have an interest in an MBA. I'm not sure if an MBA is necessarily necessary, though, for that reason. So I've looked into a program like this. This is the one that is like a joint MS MBA. There are some great reviews, extensive ones from students who have been through it. My takeaway, essentially, at the end of reading through a lot of their reviews is that it's not for me. The typical student that graduates from this program basically said, this program is only worthwhile if you are very certain of what area of CS you want to study and build towards. And if you're just going into here because you're interested in building a business or building things, the program is probably not for you. So that hopefully that's some insight I can share. I think you want to reflect introspectively on what interests you more. Is it building things, sitting behind a computer, kind of coding, or is it more the business side? You're talking with people. There's a lot of strategy, things like that. Okay, and hey, it's Shinji. How's it going? Hope everything is well on your side. Okay, let's get into some of the questions that I've been getting. I'm going to start with one that I think we'll get into some of the master's stuff. I'm just going to read it off here. So the question goes, I've been following your channel for a while since I came across health informatics. You've been bringing up great videos, which are really helpful for upcoming folks who want to pursue an informatics career. Got my major in pharmacy, and I'll be graduating later this year. I'm planning to get into a master's in health informatics as I am into computer programming and stuff. So I think this would be a great way for me to apply my technical skills into the healthcare domain. There are a couple of questions I have. So it looks like he has 4 questions. I'll try to be succinct because there's another big question that others have asked. So the first question is, what are the major and minor roles of a health informaticist? That's actually not even sure how best to answer that question. I think in short, I'll just be super succinct here. The main role is you serve as a liaison between clinical people who are purely clinical and technical people who are very technical. And I think your ability to translate between the two, so when you're talking to technical people, be able to speak their lingo, but communicate the ideas that clinical people have, and then vice versa on the other side. I think that's the major role. Maybe for the minor roles, you can think of like specific areas of interest that you may do. So for example, you might have a role in clinical decision support and be solely focused on that. You might have a role in terminology mappings and be solely focused on that. You might have a role in creating databases and be specifically focused on that. But in the big picture, I think, let me actually turn off that question, is you're serving as that liaison. Next question that you have, after earning a master's degree, can we move into healthcare IT? It's a pretty loaded question. I think there might be a bit of a gap in terms of education, like what education is doing to train us as individuals to prepare for a job in something versus what the jobs and employers are looking for. I think when it comes to asking questions like, can we get into data science? Can we get into health tech? Can we get into informatics? You should start with the employer. So if you're interested in, let's say, a healthcare IT position, and you probably have to be specific with the job titles that you're interested in, you should go and look up those job descriptions and look up what the requirements are. If the requirements say you need a master's, you probably need a master's. If it doesn't, then it really doesn't. So I think when you're asking these types of questions, figure out what are all the different types of jobs that fit your criteria of interest, and then looking up what the different criterias are to get into it. Hopefully that answers the question there. The next question is, does the state require a license for pharmacy informaticists and health informaticists, or do we need one if we work in a corporate field? That's a good question. So I'll answer 2 different ways. The first way is, in most of the positions that I've worked in, which is typically in a hospital and health system setting, a pharmacy license is required. And they've typically required it in the state I was working in. So I have, and I still have, licenses in Florida, Utah, and Minnesota. I don't have licenses in the state that I currently live in, which is Virginia, and I didn't have one when I was in DC. And my current job in health tech does not require me to have a active pharmacy license. So I would think that in more traditional areas of healthcare, like in a hospital or community setting, you probably need to have it. And in some of these more like technology focused companies, you probably don't, but it probably depends. One last question here, which is it possible to switch careers into tech as a software developer with a master's in health informatics? That's another loaded question. I think so. First off, I think it's possible to switch careers into anything, as long as you are willing to work towards it. The second thing is, do I think a master's in health informatics will help get you there? Maybe yes and no. So I think software developers, especially in the last few years, it would seem as though you can get into those roles, maybe even now, with just a coding bootcamp. So having the skill set of knowing how to code and build working code, perhaps using frameworks to deliver a working product, is the main requirements needed to be a software developer. A master's in health informatics, I think, is not necessarily completely focused on that end-to-end of delivering a final product. You're probably more on the data science, statistics, and just general biomedical informatics type skill sets. So I would think you probably need a little bit more to deliver a working product. But you can always supplement that with like coding classes and things like that. Looks like there is another question. I'll get into some of the next big ones. The next set of questions, there's probably like 5 or 6 questions on this, which is, if I'm a clinician, how do I get into health tech? And I'll spend a little bit of time talking about that in just a second, since Layla has a question here. Hopefully I'm not butchering your name. Layla says, may I know why you're interested in MSCS rather than MS in biomedical informatics? MSBI seems very deep into CS too. Yeah, that's a great question. So I think I flipped back and forth quite a bit, and I've had a couple of questions with folks on this. It's a great, great question, and I think it's unique to the individual. So this is everything. Keep in mind, it's my personal opinion on this, and it may not be applicable to you. So the very first thing to know is that I've actually taken about 20 to 25 credits in biomedical and health informatics through my MPH program between 2018 and 2020. So I have a lot of the concepts that have been ingrained in me, and I was able to apply it when I was still working as an informatics pharmacist at Mayo. It's one of the biggest transformations in my perspective in learning those kind of concepts. So biomedical informatics, especially if you're like a healthcare practitioner, is super helpful because it goes right into applications. You're able to use it right away and apply it to your day-to-day work, especially if you're in informatics. And if you're not, it's very helpful to have that kind of thinking when you're going into these roles, because many of the things that I've learned over the years, even through residency training and practice experience, I wish I had that biomedical informatics / health informatics type of thinking before doing that. So that's one. I've had some training already. The second thing is, as I'm taking these biomedical informatics courses, I'm recognizing that there is a fairly large gap in my technical knowledge. And it transcends that a little bit more in the sense that I lack more of a computer science foundational thing. I've had conversations with folks about, what exactly do you want to do? And I'm very much interested in building something from the ground up, being able to build whatever product or software, develop it in the right way, thinking about it in a systems approach seems much more fitting in a computer science area. It's not necessarily focused in health, which is, I think, is the problem. But I think it will help me in how I think about problems in general. Another thing, I'm going to call out one of my classmates. I had a good conversation with her a few months ago, and I think I liked the way she explained it too. It's Azra is her name. And Azra was saying to me, because we had this conversation, that she thinks if you're a clinical person, so you're a nurse, a pharmacist, a physician, a PA, a dentist, things like that, and you want to get into tech, a CS degree or CS training, computer science, is a great path to go. If you're an engineer or a more technical background, the biomedical informatics is a great way to go. So I really agree with that and resonate with that thought a lot, because I think when you come into these like hybrid approaches, having very different perspectives brings a lot of value. PhD in chemical engineering. Oh, that's super interesting. In that case, I'm not sure if you have any practice. Oh, I'm assuming not. You haven't. I'm assuming you haven't practiced in direct patient care roles. If that's the case, then biomedical informatics might be very much up your alley. A lot of my classmates were predominantly from more technical fields, and I think they really enjoyed the biomedical informatics courses quite a bit. And it was the opposite for my clinical colleagues who were more pivoting towards the CS courses. So biomedical informatics might be an area that you're more interested in versus CS. Okay, hopefully that provides some perspectives. The next set of questions is all around how do you break into health tech? And again, the audience that have been asking that question have primarily been pharmacists, of course, because that's my main audience. I'm a pharmacist. But I get the question quite often from nurses, PAs, physicians, and actually, coincidentally, a lot of PhDs as well. PhDs or DRPHs of some sort in public health, in statistics, different things like that. I'm going to address this question first from the clinical side. And I will say there's maybe 3 big categories that I think you can do as a clinical person looking to get into health tech. Now, you don't have to necessarily be a clinical person, but I think it applies more so to the clinical folks. The first of which is crafting the value statement that you have. And what I mean by that is, as clinicians, you have a whole different perspective on how you approach problems in the tech world. And the value add, the biggest value add, is your domain expertise. Now, personally, I don't think that's enough in saying that I'm a nurse, I have 10 years of domain expertise, hire me. I think what you need to do is really craft compelling stories on concrete examples of how you add that. So, for example, as a pharmacist, one of my favorite examples that I like to use, and it happens all the time, is when people are developing technologies, let's say for medications, they might say, oh, we obviously need the drug. And maybe we might have biomedical informatics folks that says, we need the RX norm codes or the NDC codes. Yes, that's a great thing to do. But as a pharmacist, I can tell you the specific dose, the specific route, and the dosage forms all make a huge difference as well in terms of what you're treating. For example, the what do you call it? Vancomycin IV and vancomycin PO are great examples. When people are looking into vancomycin, which is an antibiotic, in terms of what they're being used for, they want to develop a model on it, something like that, you have to consider the route. And the big reason why is because vancomycin IV is used to treat things like pneumonia, bloodstream infections, skin infections, what have you. Vancomycin PO does not. It actually doesn't get systemically absorbed into your body and can only treat and primarily used to treat things like C. diff, which is an infection in the gut. So this is where you can craft these value statements of, hey, I'm a pharmacist, I have the domain expertise, and these are the areas where I bring value. So a very long-winded way of saying you have to craft these stories to show how you can bring value. The second thing related to that is, I don't think you can just do that alone. You have to speak the language of tech a little bit more as well. So what I mean by that is understanding what types of problems these health tech companies are solving for, understanding the lingo that they use and how they solve it, be it like databases, APIs, using, I don't know, something like that. Just being able to speak the language a little bit more, and then adding that into your story to really show that you understand not only the domain expertise that you bring, but also how you can actually take that and apply it to a tech company. That's one of the biggest things I think is important when it comes to breaking the health tech. Now, the second big category is the biomedical informatics skill set. I kind of alluded to this earlier, but My training through my MPH, where I got to experience biomedical informatics and health informatics, was super impactful to how I approach problems as a informaticist. I think the second next best thing to do if you want to break into health tech is have a better understanding of that. And those are simple. You can just enroll in courses to learn more about either biomedical informatics or health informatics. For those of you who are more interested in like working in a hospital setting, health informatics is probably the way you want to go. If you're more interested in a tech company, biomedical informatics is probably where you want to go. Now, there's always overlaps in that case, and I say the distinction between health informatics and bioinformatics because health informatics typically is at the application level, where you're working with technologies that apply at the intersection of direct patient care and patients. So much more fundamental concepts there. Biomedical informatics isn't typically that way. It's usually further removed from direct patient care, and there are other concepts that you really need to consider in that route. But in any case, informatics skill sets is the next big area I think you should invest in if you want to break into health tech. The last piece is the technical skills. So your technical skills, and this is your the typical SQL, Python, R, learning about different databases, perhaps in the cloud, learning about APIs, data science, statistics, what have you, all these like technical skill sets. I think there's a fairly large group of individuals that believe you don't need any of those. And I also kind of fall into that category. For folks who've always wanted to transition into informatics, I said, you never need to know those kind of things. Informatics is really what you need to know. For tech companies, I think that changes a little bit, where it's very helpful if you know those kind of things, because most people in technology companies speak that language. And if you're not able to basically communicate with them, there's not a lot of value add. You have to be able to communicate and collaborate and work together with these folks. So I think that that third category is investing your time in just learning more technical skills. And let me actually drop a quick plug here. Let me move this. I'm going to share my screen. Window. Here it is. Okay. It's a selfish plug for myself. This is my website. And a lot of these questions that folks answer, like I do these live streams in hopes of like getting new answers or getting folks that I can engage with to expound upon these questions that I'm receiving. But a lot of the questions I do get, I always try to update. On the top right here is this FAQ. And it's all the questions that I've received over the years asking about these things. So skills or certificates for pharmacy informatics, what master's degrees to get, how do I transition to health tech? Because I probably get this at least 10 times a week. There's a course I have on here. It does cost money. It's like $99. But there's the first section, I probably provides a lot of the value already in terms of what health tech companies are looking for. And I want to say that part's free. Go check that out. Just listen to that. I think it's probably like 10 or 15 minutes. There's a lot of value there. The next piece is like types of skills to learn. So I'm actually, this is the next part I wanted to chat more about, which is open clin tech. I've been trying to, like it says here, but trying to answer this question myself is, how do I learn more technical skills? Because I think that was the biggest thing coming into a technology company, is how do I do that? So I compiled a free course that basically lists all the different resources I've personally used to get myself to where I am today. You can check that out. That'd be very helpful. There's a clinical informatics / biomedical informatics type course that I'll be building through Open Clin Tech that I hope to share in the coming months, as that's going to be my primary focus for, maybe months, years to come. I want to get into health tech. I think this is a pretty popular question about like, okay, I want to get into health tech. Where do I even start? I think I mentioned this earlier too, is like you really need to know the types of positions that you're interested in. Health tech is so broad that you need to figure out what area of health tech do you actually want to work in, and then subsequently figure out what are the names of those types of positions, so you can start looking up, oh, you actually need a master's for this, or oh, you actually need a PhD for this, and oh, they actually want a PhD in computer science for this to get into these fields. But it's really hard if you don't know those job positions. So to give some ideas, I actually have this, you can go into here. These were the actual positions that, like the actual names of the positions that I applied for. And it took like weeks to months to nail down these different ones. And it's just searching different job boards, Google searching, asking around, and figuring out what are the names of these. And you can tell, like, for me as a pharmacist, none of these contain the word pharmacist. Some of them didn't even contain the word informaticist, clinical innovation head, product managers, there's research program managers. So I think you need to figure out these job descriptions that match, or these job titles that match your interests, and start there to figure out what are the skill sets that you need to build. A couple of other things here is a lot of folks also ask about my experience working in health tech, what it's like. I wrote a post about it. You can come check this out here. People ask about data science all the time. There's some pretty lengthy blogs that I've written about that you can go check out there. People ask about the specific courses I was interested in taking. I have an entire curriculum that I had planned out. You can see what I was looking at. My goal was to specialize in AI. So you can see that in here. All of this is public. And I think that those are the main things. That should address most of the, let me actually stop sharing. There it is. Most of the questions that I get. And as people ask me new questions, I try and update that website. Okay, so I think what I'm gonna do next, I'm gonna do a plug again for joining me live. I'm gonna spend the last bit of the live stream just talking a little bit about Open Clean Tech and some ideas for it. And hopefully, if you guys are tuned in, we'll love to hear your thoughts about, what kind of content you like to see, what more can I do, how can I improve on these ideas that I'm thinking of. But first, let me actually go and open my live stream here. 1 second. Okay. All right. So quick plug again. There's a link down there. Let me actually post this in the chat as well. If you want to jump on the live stream with me, you're welcome to. You're pop right in here, and we can engage and chat about whatever you want to chat about. The second thing is, if you guys have questions, these are meant to be just open, kind of ask whatever questions you want, and we can have a conversation about it. Because I'm hoping to address questions that other people probably have as well. Okay, so I'm going to spend the last bit talking about Open Clean Tech. And so the big idea here is getting people to solve the problem that I want to solve. And that problem is global healthcare interoperability. I am one single individual that will hardly make a dent into solving a problem of that sort. So my entire goal in life is to use these types of platforms to teach people about the problems, and then teach people how we can solve those things, because we actually need, you need a lot of people to do so, to teach people how to solve these things. And so the Open Clean Tech, which actually, let me post that. opencleantech.com. It's not live yet, but I'll add it anyway. Open Clean Tech is the manifestation of that. And the idea there is to have every single piece of content free on the website. So folks can learn, they can, be it about informatics, be it about tech skills, things like that. And I really would like to have clinical people working more on these tech type roles, but also being very hands-on with it. So a big focus of the Open Tech is to have hands-on experiences and assessments and things that you can use to upskill yourself. And right now there's 3 kind of flavors that I'm thinking about for Open Tech. One is basically a model that's pretty much all free. So we can reach as much people as possible to get this information out there in front of folks. And that is basically YouTube. So all of the content that I'm going to create will be on YouTube and LinkedIn, of course, and readily accessible to anyone that has an internet connection. The second thing, because creating videos and doing these kind of things, even these live streams, by the way, it costs money in terms of subscription costs. And it's like upwards of thousands of dollars right now for me to produce this type of content. So the next part of Open Tech is kind of a gated approach where I'm hoping to do on the website, have a membership section only at a very, 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 very small rate, like $10 to $15 a month, just to offset the operational costs. So I don't always have to rely on a job to fund these types of things. And the value add there is not only supporting the company for Open Tech, but also offsetting the different operational costs. I actually said that wrong. The value add. The value add is that you have access to things beyond the videos. The videos itself should get you everything you need, but the things beyond the videos are like there'll be follow along type blogs or follow along code that I can't put on YouTube. I'll share my screen, but you won't have access to like copy and paste things that will help you learn faster in some ways. So that's one of the value adds. Then the last piece of Open Tech that I'll be doing is a formal learning management system. And this is what you can expect from like a Coursera course or a typical online course where you have lectures, which would be like through YouTube, for example. You would have artifacts that you can download, like a code lab, a Python notebook, references, articles, things like that, where you can follow along and really structure your learning approach. And I think in this piece, there'd definitely be assessments because I can't do that on YouTube, but I can add assessments to aid in your learning as you're learning more about informatics or technology. The last piece here that I think is the biggest value add is that many employers provide some type of reimbursement for professional development or learning. And so the LMS system, as opposed to YouTube or the membership pathway, the LMS system has certificates that I can provide. And those certificates are great for reimbursement. So you can say, hey, I want to enroll in this course. It costs, right now I'm thinking to also charge a very small, not a very small fee again, but enough to offset the cost of the LMS, which the LMS can get quite pricey. The cost would be like probably $30 to $50 a month. It's a little bit more, but it should be affordable to most people and definitely to most working professionals to access. And then something like maybe like $500 to $1,000 for a lifetime course that anyone can access. And that's pretty much it. So that's what I'm thinking right now. A couple of things that I'm trying to do. Nothing's live, like that website's not live. The only thing that's live, which I'll share here in just a second, let me share, is, go here. I am trying to show my GitHub. There's probably the most, okay, here it is. The most content on there. So this is the GitHub for Open Tech. And I think my audience definitely is a lot of folks who are purely clinical, and they can learn and draw on concepts that I hope to teach in the videos. But a big part of the audience that I also hope will be coming are folks who want to get their hands dirty a bit more and jump right on to hands-on experience of learning this stuff. So I have this GitHub repo on here to teach you those skills by walking you through different things that would be helpful. So I'll give an example. I have one already, and it's like a super basic one, which is in this repo for tutorials. I'm hoping to have all these things. You have a text base, you can kind of follow along kind of thing. And the first tutorial here is a simple, how do you connect Colab, which is a integrated development environment or an IDE where you can code using things like Python or R or whatever you want, and connect it to BigQuery, which is a cloud database that Google offers, to do different things. So for example, if you want to learn more about data science, you probably will be using some type of IDE like Colab, and you probably want to connect to some cloud database to grab your data, pull it into your environment, and run different statistics, develop models off of it, and do all these kind of cool things. So this very basic tutorial here teaches you how to just simply do that connection. It's not hard. And right here, I guess for this example, this is all public right now, by the way. Let me actually just provide this link if you guys want to check that out. Put it in the chat. It's super simple. You go into Colab, you connect. Right now, I'm connecting to Mimic, which is a fantastic public repository of healthcare information, primarily of ICU patients. It's curated. It's great. But you can connect to this and query information using like a SQL query, and then pulling it back in and basically doing any type of analysis on here. So I'm hoping to basically build all of these different tutorials out that anyone, anywhere that has access to internet can just follow along. And keeping in mind, this is more so for folks who are interested in getting their hands a bit more dirty. So there's that. Looks like I'm gonna stop sharing. Lewis has a comment. I know I'm biased because Samara, but have you considered a donation model? Hey, Lewis, thanks for tuning in, man. It was great to see you on here. Yes, I definitely have considered a donation model. I think that'll be on the GitHub, and then I also have it on my website. I think whether or not donations like come in, and they have, by the way, and shout out to everyone that has donated. I think what I would just prefer is making everything as free as possible. So every single piece of content that is involved within OpenClinTech will be on YouTube. So if you have access to an internet connection, you can watch every piece of content on there. You don't have to register for the LMS or register for the website to pay anything. You can access every single piece of content on YouTube. That would be the primary method of delivering, lectures or concepts, things like that. The second thing is the GitHub. So if you want to be more technical, everything again will be freely available on OpenClinTech. There's no membership fees, there's nothing. You can just go on there and learn whatever tutorials you want. I think the only benefits of the membership in the LMS is like getting a certificate, having assessments, and all of those things. And I want to provide that in a way that really aids in learning, because watching a YouTube video is great. Looking at these like GitHub tutorials is also great. But the best way to learn is, I truly believe, and I think Ali Abdul always talks about this, is recall. So if you want to learn something, you have to be able to test yourself. So I think the LMS, which is meant for teaching people stuff, provides a great avenue to really teach folks these things through assessments. And my goal is to have all these like little short assessments to help with that recall learning. And to do that, it costs money. So I think it's an optional route you can go, but you don't have to. I think that is it. Let me see. Looks like there's a couple of questions that are coming in. I think that's most of what I had for today. Oh, okay, no, these are just other things. Okay, well, thanks guys for tuning in. Thanks for engaging and asking questions and things like that. As usual, feel free to leave me comments or messages. It's just really hard to get through some of the messages sometimes. So try to do these once a month to engage with you guys, to in more real time answer questions. And that's it for today. Please follow along OpenClin Tech. The website will probably be live in a few months. I'm just slowly working on it. And good seeing you guys on this Saturday, and see you in the next one. Take care.